Hello everyone, welcome to this video about gypsy jazz guitar and specifically about vibrato on gypsy jazz guitar. I'm shooting today from a hotel room and I'm gonna make it quick because I have to be in the concert hall in 20 minutes for rehearsal. So this is a subject that's not often talked about or not often enough, and it's actually pretty important if you play gypsy jazz guitar that you have some kind of vibrato that you can use to color the notes. It's just part of the sound. And I've seen many different ways of playing vibrato on a gypsy jazz guitar. And I want to show you a couple of ways, and the way I do it, and the way that other people do it. And I'm not good at every way, but I can show you the different techniques, and you can decide for yourself what you would like to use. So let's start with the way I do it, because the way I do it is partly based on the way that Stochler does it, but only on the higher strings. On the lower strings, I use a different technique. So the way I do it is I let go of my hand completely from the neck. There's only one contact point, which is my finger on the string. So it's usually played with the third finger or the second finger, but you can do it with all fingers. And this technique is for, let's say, the high E string, the B string, sometimes the G string, but on the G string I can switch to another technique as well. So I press down on the notes, I let go of everything, so it's only my finger on the string. I point my thumb upwards, for some reason that's important, and then I just move my whole hand up and down. Like that. This is, it's not so hard to develop. You can develop this pretty quickly. The only thing you have to really pay attention to is that you move your arm. So don't try to do it with the wrist or the finger. You have to move your arm up and down. And you can practice this by doing it slowly first, just like this. And then do it quicker and quicker. You can use a metronome until you can kind of play with the speed. So you can do it slowly. You can start slowly, for example, and end fast. So an important thing about vibrato is that something I learned from Stochler is that when you play vibrato, you have to play continuously on the whole note. So I hear a lot of people play vibrato for a short time like this, and then it stops, and then you hear like the plain note. Well, this is actually quite an awful sound. When your vibrato stops for whatever reason, it could be a physical thing or could be because the note is just ending, but usually it's because you can't keep the motion going, then you should stop the sound of the note. So let's say you play Poinciana. So when the vibrato stops, I stop the note. I don't play it like this. No. Gone. Okay. So you can do this on every finger. You can do it with the first finger. It's pretty easy to do it. Second, third, fourth. Works on the high E string, on the B string. It works on the G string, depending on where you are on the neck. Because that's another thing. It changes the amount of strength you need, or the motion you make changes on where you are on the guitar. So it's much easier to do it high than low because the strings have more tension low on the neck. It's just more difficult to bend the strings. So now let's talk about the technique that I use for lower strings. I actually do the same thing, only the motion is downwards. So I press down the string, but instead of a round finger, I flatten my fingers because I need a little bit more pressure on the string to have control. I let go of everything and I just move my arm down and up. So not up and down. It's the same thing, of course, but I start moving the string downwards. Yeah. And don't worry about the sound you hear from the neck. That's normal when you play with it in a band and you have to play with more volume. You will not hear this. You hear it now, of course, but it's because I'm playing alone. This technique is a little bit more difficult to learn than the other one because there's just more tension on the strings. But so my trick is to flatten my fingers. That's something I actually got from Cha, who does it the same way, only he keeps his thumb on the neck. But I let go because I have more motion that way. If you flatten the fingers, you can do it. And you can even do it very low, like here. I'm not going to say it's difficult. It's easy to do, but you can do it. So the most important thing is, especially when you play low, because it's more difficult, is to keep the vibrato consistent, the speed. So you either want it to speed up, or you want to have a consistent speed of the vibrato. So you never want to start fast vibrato and go to a slow vibrato. That doesn't sound nice. But you can do a slow vibrato as long as you keep it going. That's fine. Or you can start slow and go faster. But don't start fast and go slow, like this. That just sounds like you don't have control of the vibrato. So that's my way, and I think it's a pretty easy way to develop. Just let go of everything except for the contact point on the string. Move your arm. Now, Stockwell does the same way when he plays vibrato on the higher strings. But on the lower strings, he has a different technique. Something I tried for a long time. I think it's beautiful. If you can do it that way, it's probably the most beautiful way, but I cannot do it. So what he does is he makes this kind of position where his thumb is on the back of the neck, so you cannot see it. And he has this big wide hand position, and then he has fingers around, and he just moves his fingers like this. So to be able to do this, you have to, well, it's not pressing hard, but you have to press the strings into the neck to be able to do this. Like this. And he can do that everywhere. He can do it low, high. So he would change. Sometimes he would vibrate like this on the high strings. Sometimes he would do it this technique. Well, for me, this is very difficult to control. I can't really control the speed. Sometimes I have to stop the vibrato with this motion. Just I cannot keep the motion going. So that's why I don't really do it. But it's beautiful if you can develop it. Okay, so another technique you can use is to have kind of an anchor point here, and you rotate around this point where the first finger touches the neck. So this is the technique that I see a lot of players do that come from rock, because I think this is the technique that you use in rock. So you rotate, so I cannot do this, but I can try. You rotate around this pivot point, like this. So the advantage of this technique is that you can pretty much keep this consistent everywhere. You can, if you practice this motion, you can do it the same motion, the low strings, the high strings. I think the disadvantage is that it's very difficult to control the speed. Usually you have one speed you can do this in, and that's the speed you use, so you have the same sound. But if it's a good sound, it's great. And the last technique I want to show you is a technique that's used by, for example, Adrien Monniard and some other French players, which is where they move the finger. So it's a very fast vibrato, and it's especially very useful if you have short notes. If you want to play, you play a fast phrase and you end on a note. It's pretty short, and you can use this quick vibrato, like. So I'm not doing it in the correct technique, but it's this short burst, and they do it by moving the finger. It's kind of similar to the technique where you pivot around this point, but then they use the hand, but they use like the finger. I really cannot do it. It's very difficult to keep this going also. I know that some people can do it, but a lot of people that have this vibrato can only do it in short bursts. So it is effective, but it might not be the best choice when you have no vibrato. So let's say you have no vibrato, you want to develop a vibrato, then I wouldn't go for this finger vibrato, even though it can sound really great. I would go for a bigger motion. So either the motion I use, where you let go of everything except the contact points, or the motion where you pivot around this point, or even Stockwell's way where you have this big hand position. Like you see my thumb is pretty far from the fingers, and you press the string down into the fretboard. Okay, so that was it for this video. It's a short video, but there's not much more to say about vibrato. The thing is, the last tip is, if you use too much pressure on your hand, too much tension in your hand, you're going to make it very difficult for yourself. So try to find a balance between, for example, pushing the string into the fretboard and being relaxed. Because in the end, if you have to use a lot of tension, you won't be able to do it for a long time or for like the whole concert. So my way, for example, does use the arm, but I try to not make my arm stiff. I try to keep my arm very relaxed. And it feels kind of effortless. So I hope you can do something with these tips. If you have questions, please ask me in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.